Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of CareerABD TV. My name's JT O'Donnell. I'm your host, and today we've got a really special topic. We're going to be talking to college students, specifically the 3 things that they forget to do before they graduate and why they need to pay attention to these things if they want to embark on a successful career track. I'm lucky because today I have one of our CareerABD approved experts, Shell Mendelson, with us today. And Shell is actually the founder of NB Careers, and she specializes in guiding people through career ADD and career paralysis. And candidly, these days we see a lot of students with career paralysis. So this is a timely topic and something that she's actually written about on our site. If you go over to careerism.com, you can see that she wrote an article here, and I've got that on the screen for you, called From College to Career, Leveraging Your Studies and Find a Career You Love. And she wrote a really great article. She's going to be talking about this. She's going to be talking about resources that are good for you. But I also hope you'll go check her out. As you know, all of our CareerABD approved experts have a great online presence. You can see Shell here, 8,000 followers and counting over at NB Careers on Twitter. So definitely something you could follow there. Also, you should head over to her website, passion2career.com, and you're looking at that right here, passion2career.com, and you can see lots of different resources here, as well as some really neat programs that she offers for folks that you'll hear about later on today as well. She's got her very own Facebook page for NB Careers, and you can actually get a free download of her 6-minute goal setting exercise. You can see that right here. So a great tool that you could run over for. And of course, she's on LinkedIn. There she is, super profile on LinkedIn. So you can meet her in any way you choose, my online friends. You can get connected with Shell quite easily. So we want to get down to business. We want to bring Shell onto the screen here and welcome her. Shell, thanks for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's exciting to be here today.
So tell me a little bit about, you have a specialty in career ADD and career paralysis. And I think this is timely. I think a lot of students today, they may have career ADD, they may not know it, but they definitely have career paralysis. So how did you get into this, and why do you think it's so important to understand it?
Well, I ran through a little bit of it myself in the very beginning, but I knew probably in my late 20s what direction I wanted to take in counseling. And I started out as a voc rehab counselor where I worked with people who were injured on the job for many years. Then I started burning out of that, and I'm the kind of person with the ADD, because I do have ADD myself, which I'm very proud of, and I'll talk a little bit about that if you want me to. But it's helped me to create a lot of wonderful opportunities in my life. But I transitioned into career counseling when I decided that I wanted to work with people who were looking for career happiness, I call it. And so I got additional training from Richard Bowles, who wrote What Color Is Your Parachute? Well, Parachute, in case you don't know, has been out for the past 40 years. And actually, I think it's into year 41. And Richard Bowles his book was just named with Time magazine as one of the top 100 nonfiction books of all time. There's a reason why his methods work. And I've stayed in touch with him over the years. I've been to his house for training. I love everything about Parachute. So when I work with people, I find that, especially people with ADD, that his model works very, very well, because essentially what we're doing is defining something that's going to be something you can live with for years in the future. So go ahead.
That makes a lot. No, I can see that. And you mentioned, you've been literally a student of Richard Bowles. And so it's timely today that we're talking to students, because I think we have a lot of students out there that go to school. Probably the number one reason they go to college is because they're told to, right? We're told you got to go to school to get a college degree to be able to succeed. And so today we're focusing on the 3 things that these folks forget to do and why they need to pay attention to that. And when I asked this to you, you immediately shot back the 3 things you knew. And the first thing that you shared with us is that they have to have a career goal first and then decide what major will provide the easiest or quickest route to a job and career path after that. Talk to us a little bit about where college students are going wrong and how they should go about what you propose.
Well, I think one of the things is I see right now I'm seeing quite a few college students who, some of them generally know what they want to do, and I'll give my son as an example. He is in his freshman year of college, and he knew from high school that he wanted to go into mechanical engineering, but he also wants to engineer bowling balls, which is his passion. So the nice thing about that for him now, and of course as a parent I'm very happy to know that my son has a direction, is that he does have kind of a track that he's going through in college. It makes it a lot easier. He can relax a little bit because he knows pretty much what he's going to take. Opportunities will come up for him throughout his college career. He knows he wants to engineer bowling balls, so he's going to be talking to some folks who make bowling balls. He'll be doing some informational interviews along the way. And he can, like I said, he can relax and have fun with it a little bit, get to know the professors in the engineering department, get to know people in the field of engineering. I mean, it makes it so much easier when you have a defined area right from the very beginning. So I try and work with people in high school before they get to college. Understand that it's never too late, even if you've graduated, to start this process. But starting the process of defining what it is that you want to do is so, so critical. And I can't stress that enough, and I don't see it happening enough even today.
Right. And, you know, I think the classic scenario that we have is that individuals get busy with college. They get into college and they're busy taking their required courses and learning how to live on their own and do these various things, and time gets away from them, and it's senior year. So if you're a senior and you realize you don't have this goal, what can you do? What are your suggestions so that they don't start to panic?
Well, what I suggest, number one, is I want to throw out a book that you can get right away that will help you. It's it's an easy read. It's actually designed for college students to read, and it's got some basic information and resources in it. It's called Getting from College to Career by Lindsay Pollack. And I love this book because it really does speak to all the different aspects of what people go through when they're young in college, and even when they just graduate in their senior year, at any time during that period. So I really highly recommend getting that, and especially getting to know, like I mentioned, getting to know people, networking, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. And the other thing is, I think it's important for you to find, if you can find a professional on campus who might work with you, like somebody who is willing to work with you one-on-one. But if I was a career center director at one point, and I know that time is very limited in most colleges, so most of you are probably rolling your eyes going, oh yeah, right, they're not, they're going to give me that time. I wanted to do that. That was the thing I loved to do, and I didn't have the time to do it. So I'm gonna throw this out there. Get some professional help. Get somebody to work with, like, immediately, because the investment that you make in a career professional is far less than even one wrong class that you've taken. Think about it. And it's an investment in your future. So the person that you work with will hopefully, if they know, I'm assuming that they're good folks and they've had the training, they are going to be helping you to look at aspects of yourself that you haven't even noticed. They'll be asking you questions that will help you look into who you are, look into everybody says strengths and abilities, but it's much more than that. It's really defining every aspect of what makes up your ideal work. And that means what kind of conditions you want to be around, what kind of people you want to be around, where you want to live. There's so many different things that define that. So it's not too late to do that as a senior, and it's never, ever too late. But of course, the earlier the better. I'll always say that.
So let me give you a scenario. If you're a young person, I think we have this career paralysis, or more of a choice paralysis that goes on. There are so many choices for us as young people, and we feel such an obligation. I hear young people say this all the time, to make the right choice. They feel like whatever decision they make in career is going to be this, in college is going to be this huge, huge decision, and it's going to affect the rest of their life. And as they look at options, they're always looking over their shoulder and saying, but what if that option's better? And so I see them almost kind of trying to create a more broad choice, or resist focusing, like you mentioned, your son who's focusing in on bowling balls. They don't want to go that way for fear that they're going down the wrong path. What do you tell a college student who feels that way and who is avoiding getting more specific about what they should pursue for that reason?
Let me backtrack and say that's the reason he currently wants to do that is because he wants to engineer bowling balls. However, he's going into a very broad topic that could take him virtually anywhere. So being general is okay. It's just because there are a lot of places to be general in. It's still knowing yourself. If you don't know yourself and what really turns you on, what you're passionate about, and being passionate is what's going to get you the job in the long run. Without that, forget it. There's too much competition out there. So I'm going to go back to doing this work, this inner work to define so that you can narrow it down the best that you possibly can. And even narrowing it down, it's okay to come up with something that's general. But look at what's out there. There's so much. So you're just, narrowing down the different aspects of who you are into something that's going to make sense for you maybe on a broader scope. And don't forget, when you're just starting out, you don't have to do the job of your dreams when you're just starting out. But having like a general direction. And, one thing I want to say is you hear a lot about from personal growth folks about the end result, knowing what the end result is. Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's seeing a picture of what you want your end result to be, which could change. And without doing the inner work, it's almost impossible to have that. So having a vision and then allowing yourself and being open to what comes up during that process, because throughout college you're going to have different opportunities and you want to gravitate to the ones that you feel good about, and you'll have a better opportunity to do that when you know who you are and you have that kind of defined even a broader goal. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the other thing that I think that they failed to remember, and you pointed out so eloquently, is that you're not going to know the answers to this. You're not going to know easily how to narrow down careers that fit your lifestyle and your passions and your interests, because you are only in your early 20s and you haven't had this experience, which leads back to your point about get a mentor, get a coach, get somebody that can actually guide you through that process to help you narrow it down and feel like you're making an informed decision. And I honestly think that that's where a lot of folks fall short. Like you said, they don't bother to go down to the Career Center. They don't bother to get help. But that idea of paying for one bad class was probably more expensive than investing in a career coach or some career guidance. It's such a great point. Folks, we are talking to Shel Mendelson today. She is one of our Careerism approved expert. You can see her right here over on Careerism.com. She's on Twitter, and I asked her earlier, this beautiful picture on Twitter is actually on the coast of Italy, where she'd like to have a place someday. So great aspirations. That looks beautiful. Her website is passiontocareer.com, and she specializes in CareerABD and career paralysis, which we're hearing a lot about today with respect to college students. For those of you that are a fan of Facebook, there she is. NB Careers is on Facebook, and she's giving away a free 6-minute goal-setting exercise that you can download right over there on Facebook. She's on LinkedIn, and I know she's open to networking with you, so if you're on LinkedIn, you should be connecting with her as well. And you definitely should go check out the article she wrote recently called From College to Career over on her website, because it's got a lot of great information. So, Shel, let's talk about that second thing that you think a lot of students are forgetting to do. And you say that they need to continually check in to make sure they are on track to graduate throughout college and taking the right courses leading to a degree. Make sure you are connecting with the advisors on campus who are giving you the most up-to-date information. Many university administration systems are not the best, and at times one department does not know what the other is doing. Now, you mentioned you were in career services at a university before, so it sounds like you've got an inside track on this. Tell us a little bit more about why students have to take so much ownership in this process.
Well, for obvious reasons. I think if you're in college now, you're probably already experiencing some of that. When I speak with college students, some of them are very fortunate and have great advisors, and others are completely lost. And it's because they're kind of expecting somebody to take them by the hand and tell them exactly where to go. This college is a place, it's your first opportunity to really, really become proactive and represent yourself. And that means you cannot depend on getting the right information from anyone. Really, you've got to get it from several sources and get it backed up and backed up. And I have already experienced this with my son in his freshman year. We've gone through, I mean, I can't even tell you what our summer was like, just going through one class that he decided to drop. So if you know what you want to do, you think you're taking the right classes, check, recheck, check again, because if you want, I mean, I'm really an advocate for graduating in 4 years, only because most of us can't afford to have the kind of debt that piles up if you don't. So that's why, number one, getting the focus to begin with. Once you got the focus and direction, even if it's a general one or a broader one, get some help to make sure that you're getting on a track of some kind to take the classes that you need to take. And what I'm hearing now are a lot of the colleges add prerequisites kind of at the last minute. So the next thing you know, you've got a prerequisite added, which is going to make your college last longer than you want it to. It's going to also cost you a lot more. So again, it's just a matter of getting the information, being proactive, talking to department heads, talking to advisors, talking to as many people as you possibly can to get that information, because it is a maze out there. It's a maze. So
I think it's interesting that you articulate that focus. I could see going to potential employers too, or individuals that are in the job that you're in or aspire to be in today, and asking what classes are relevant as well. Because it's amazing how many people will take classes because they heard they're fun or they're interesting or you'll have a good time or it's easy. But to your point, that's a waste to your career. It's not going to give you any value, and that's a pretty costly investment. I also am amazed at, like you said, the number of people that throw money at the problem. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I've been hearing about students realizing they weren't going to get a job or that they didn't have a focus, and so the solution is to stay on and pay an extra $50,000 to get their MBA,
Right.
or to get their master's in something they're not even sure they like. And candidly, what nobody tells them while they're paying that money is when they're done, they still don't have any work experience. So they're still going to get the same starting pay they would have gotten with the bachelor's degree as opposed to the master's, about 90% of the time. It's rare that you just go get that master's and it automatically assumes more pay, especially if you don't have any experience to back it up. So how would you advise a student, again, let's talk about that student that's listening to you today and going, oh, dang, I didn't do any of this. A lot of my courses aren't relevant, and I'm not even sure, what I should be heading in. What do they do? Because I think you're right. They do need to graduate and not spend any more money on this until they can figure out what they should be doing.
Well, I think you said it right there. I think they need to get, well, it takes me back to define what it is that you want to do before you take the next step. This is why it's so critical. This is the thing that very few people do. I mean, really, it's what I have, if theoretically, my caseload should be the entire planet of people that are looking for jobs right now. But bottom line is people don't see the value in it because they think they're going to get the information online or they're going to go and get it somewhere else. But really, it's getting that help that's really, really important. So I would just say if you can get a trusted, if you have an advisor that on campus who is like a confidant, somebody you can talk to, I would get somebody. I would find somebody that you can trust to help take you through some of the steps.
One that we've been for us to discuss here, which is what happens when somebody works with a career coach. To your point, people think they can go get this information online for free, but that's not what you're there to do. Obviously, if you were just meant to give them information, then you're right, they wouldn't need this service. Talk to us a little bit about, for example, the training you went through with Richard Bowles and some of the things that you might do with a student in order to help them find this focus more quickly.
Well, when I went through his training, I went through essentially the Parachute book. And the truth is that there are books for everything. You can learn anything through a book, really, but people don't do it. That's why there are people to help you through that. what I add to it is I add my insight and I ask questions that are relevant to that person. And I give them a different perspective from my professional background on where they can take this or how they might want to look at things. I had a client today that I was speaking with, and one of the things we do, which is what we do in the Bowles process, is write stories. Well, her story, so the first 3 stories that she wrote from age 3 to age 10, told so much about her, and it made her look at where her life is today. And the thing is, people choose these stories because they're meaningful to them, and they speak to who they really are. Even at age 3, she told the story about when she went swimming in Greece, and she saw her dad out in the water, and she had no idea of how far she was swimming or how far she was going out into the water. But all she saw was this end result of her dad, right? So she's like, I said, well, this speaks to your big picture thinking, which she really is. She's very much of a big picture. And I said, in every one of her stories, she had an end result that she wasn't expecting. That of course she didn't think about at that age. But she was able to look at it from a broader perspective, and she figured out how to get there. So problem solving was huge for her, right? And seeing the big picture were 2 things that came up. Well, I pointed these things out to her, and she hadn't really thought of things in that way. She hadn't seen her life in that way. And so what it does is it reinforces all of the things that are coming up over and over and over again. And it gives her an opportunity to look at things from that perspective. And that's kind of what, it goes on until we come up with something that really makes sense in the field of work that she wants to live in. And a lot of people don't think about all the different fields that are out there. And I'll give an example, and this is one Bowles gives too, of the movies. Like some people want to work in the movie industry. And you think, well, maybe there's only the director, and there's the actor, and there's the screenwriter, and the obvious jobs within that industry. But if you look at the credits at the end of a movie, you're going to see how many different jobs? You're probably going to see 100 or more jobs within that industry. So if you have a love of movies and you think, oh, that doesn't relate to anything I'm doing, well, there's going to be a job within that field or that industry that's probably something you can do or think about doing, or at least go speak to somebody to see if that's what you want to do. I hope I didn't get off track too much.
Not at all. I think that's a great example, and I love to hear real stories like that with students, because I think they need to hear that that's what has to happen. Somebody has to dialogue with you and allow them to let you see your life in a different way. It sounds like you did an amazing job with that person. And I do love the movie story, by the way. I've never looked at it that way. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's just fun. It's what I love to do, so it comes very naturally for me. And so my goal is to help other people to be able to experience what it's like to be in a job or a career, to even think about a career that is so natural and easy. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be something you struggle with. It should be something, in fact, I say if your last 2 years of college are not fun, because you're now taking classes that you really want to take in your major, then there's something wrong. It means you're in the wrong field.
That's a really great way to calibrate where you are. I agree with you on that. You shouldn't be just trying to get through school, should you? You should be really excited about your learning. So folks, we're talking to Shel Mendelson today. She's one of our Careerism approved experts. She specializes in CareerABD and career paralysis. She's been trained by Richard Bowles, and she has her site, Passion to Career, which you can go check out and learn a lot more about her and her work. Shel, I know that, kind of on the subject, if it's okay, that you do work with people, you offer a way for them to try working with you. So, because I think a lot of people are hesitant to use career coaches. They don't understand it. They're not sure what value they're going to get. Can you tell us a little bit about the program that you offer so that people can almost kind of just try it out?
Yeah, I have a mini career, what's called a mini career counseling session for $39. And if you go out to dinner one night, you probably can afford, maybe take a date or something. And I pack a lot into that because I ask you some questions, so you send me some information that I have before we meet. And we really focus on, I wrote the 11 afflictions, I call them, of career ADD. Really, there's a lot more. These are the ones that were just kind of off the top of my head that I've experienced in my life. So I asked you to focus on one or two of those, which generally apply to pretty much everyone. I mean, everyone has one or two of those. So we can, spend the time really focused in, and I make it a point to make sure that there are some insights, you get something out of it, because I'm not happy unless you do. That's just me. I'm not happy. So, yeah.
That's great. It's very affordable. I think the key for people to be able to try it and know that it works. And we're looking at her CareerABD site right now, Shell. We're showing everybody your 11 signs that you're afflicted. And folks, she's got another great tool right there called 6 Minutes to Better Focus, which is all about that goal setting. So you can always go over to Shell's site, put in your email address, and get that advice for free as well. So Shell, let's talk about the third thing that college students are forgetting to do, and that is very simply networking. And you emphasize that this is such a huge thing that they need to be doing. Talk to us about networking, how they should be doing it, who they should be talking to, why, all that good stuff.
Well, of course, I think it should start very early. But again, if you haven't started it as a freshman, you need to start right away. And just the keys in networking are be curious, be inquisitive, which means ask a lot of questions. And some of the ways you can do it are to join organizations, or even just to go to meetings of some association and organizations that interest you, something that is fun, even if it's like the chess club or whatever. The chess I don't know if they have anything like that, but organizations for different areas or different fields. And get to know as many people as you can. A lot of times they'll let you come to the meetings for free the first couple of times. The other one that you've probably heard a gazillion times over is informational interviewing. But here's the key, and I'm going to be working with a young lady who's done 30 of them, and that's what she wrote me. She said, I've done 30 informational interviews and nothing has happened. Well, obviously she's not doing the informational interviews just to get interviews. Really, when you do an informational interview, it should always be about just getting information. It should not try and get that whole thought about, am I going to get a job from this, out of your head, because that isn't really what happens. What happens is you talk to somebody, you ask them what they like about their job, what they don't like about their job, and it's really about gathering information and talking to them about something that you're both very interested in doing or not knowing about. You both have an interest in. And people, of course, love to talk about themselves. So you're just getting them to talk about themselves. And you decide whether this is information that is going to be helpful to you, and whether or not this is something that you want to pursue based on what the information they've given you. And of course, don't talk to people who aren't doing the jobs that you're interested in. You need to go right to the source. This isn't their boss. This is a person who's actually doing the work that you're interested in doing. And another thing, of course, is job shadowing, and I talk a little bit about that in the article, and there's a great website for that. And I have it up here on my computer. If you need the name of it, I can't think of it at the moment, but it's on my blog post there. So informational interviewing. Another one is to ask your professors and department heads for the names of people you can connect with to gather information and to get to know folks in the field you're most interested in. Again, just get to know them. Make it a point. And I say, even if the best way to do it is just to block out as a freshman, say maybe a couple of hours a month for that activity. Even when you're swamped, I'm telling you, even when you're swamped with work, carve out some time to do this, because it's going to pay off later on. It's definitely going to pay off later on. And these are also going to be probably the people you can go back and ask for references at some point. And also, just when you know what you want to do, you have some idea, start asking everyone you know who they know. Do you know somebody who does this, or who knows somebody who does this? And it's amazing what kind of information is going to come up. I mean, once you start this process of networking, you're going to have the doors open and opportunities will start to come. I mean, one thing leads to another and leads to another. It's like a continuous spiral. That's a good thing, actually.
Well, and it's funny that you say that. I can visualize that network all connected. But I think many students, the biggest fear and the biggest barrier to entry to networking altogether is they just don't understand how to do it. I hear them say to me all the time, why in the world would that person want to talk to me? What the heck am I going to talk to them about? How am I supposed to make a good impression? I'm just going to look stupid. Why would they want to help me? I hear these things over and over again. Can you give any advice to the students in terms of how they can prepare themselves so that they can be more confident and actually be more motivated to get out there and start networking?
Well, I'm going to go back to be inquisitive, be curious, ask questions. People love to have questions asked of them. It gives them the opening. I mean, then it's not a closed-ended yes or no. It's why did you get into this? I mean, what is it that you like about it? I'm interested in this, and you seem to be enjoying it or doing it. What is it that you like about it? Can you tell me more? So you don't have to do anything but ask the question in the beginning and be open to hearing what they have to say and listening. Listening is a big one, so be a good listener.
That's fantastic. So we're going to take some questions now from our audience, Shell, if that's okay with you. And I'm going to remind everyone, don't be shy. If you have a question for Shell, now's the time to ask it in our live chat, and we'll be able to answer it for her. Just to recap, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shell, great feedback today. The 3 things that college students are forgetting to do. Number 1 is that they're not going into college with a career goal, and therefore they're not focusing their efforts properly. Number 2, they're not taking ownership of that education and really making sure that the dollars they're spending on those college courses are the right college courses, the best college courses to support that career goal that they're focusing on. And number 3, they are not networking enough. Does that sound about right?
That sounds, well, those are only 3. There's a lot more. You asked for 3, so that's what I gave you.
And again, we talked specifically about one of the great ways to probably handle all 3 of these. If a student isn't getting coaching, to get some coaching, whether they go to their college counselor or they find a great mentor, or they in fact choose to invest in actual college coaching resources. And just to remind everyone again, if you're enjoying what Shell's talking about today, she does have that trial, that $39 sort of taster where you can get to know Shell and her work and see what it's like to work with a career coach who happens to be trained through Richard Bowles and What Color is Your Parachute, which again is the industry standard. It's been around for 40 years for a reason. You know, it's a really powerful book. You know, that being said, I want to ask you, do you have a favorite exercise in What Color is Your Parachute and Richard Bowles' work that you found had the deepest impact for you, Shell, in your career?
Well, you know what, I have to be honest. When I got his training, I already knew I wanted to be a career counselor. But I learned a lot about myself, and writing the stories was my favorite part. It really was, because I am a little, like I said, ADD, so I get a chance to express myself in the stories, and just coming up with different things. I had to ask myself, why did I come up with this one? What was it about this one that interested me enough to actually write about it? So that was big for me, and it's usually big for most people.
Do you think the principles you're talking about today for college students can apply to job changers as well, or do you think that they have a different set of challenges?
Absolutely they can apply to job changers. The process is the process. I don't care who you are, what age you are, if you're, a high school student or if you're a retiree. It's the same process essentially. It's just with a little bit different emphasis, focus. So the good thing about working with a professional is basically that you get to work on that focus a little bit, and things are geared towards where you are in your life, in your career, and what you're looking to do basically. But the process is a process, and don't ever not do that. I mean, if I have one thing to say, even if you can manage to do it on your own, great, do some of it on your own, fantastic, but don't skip that. Don't ever skip that.
Folks, we're talking to Shell Mendelson here. She's a careerism approved expert. You're seeing her bio on our site over at careerism.com, and she specializes in CareerABD and career paralysis. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about college students and the things that they need to do before they graduate, the things they're forgetting to do. much of this has kind of been a discussion around that part that you specialize in, career paralysis, Shell, but we haven't really talked about career ABD, and I have a sneaking suspicion that that's probably the case for more than a few students as well. So would you mind sharing with us what career ABD is and how someone like yourself assists people with that?
Well, career ADD generally occurs when you're pretty much unhappy with what you're doing. You're in a job and you're not happy with what you're doing, and you're trying to find all kinds of ways to deal with it. And for some people, it might be job hopping, or it might be getting fired. Some people end up getting fired and then trying different things. And I share with, I'm not afraid anymore to share this, but when I started before I went back to graduate school, I was in what I call the lost years in my 20s, and I worked as a secretary for 4 years, and you can imagine somebody with ADD trying to work in a cubicle, and a lot for attorneys who can be very rigid. No offense to any attorneys out there, but not the best combination for me. And and I would have trouble with making photocopies, things like that. It was only because I really did not like what I was doing. So one of the things that defines people with career ADD or ADD in general is that you've got to love what you do to do a good job at it. It's true. That's true for just about everyone, but for people with ADD characteristics or diagnosed or undiagnosed ADD, it's absolutely critical. And you guys know who you are, because when you're not doing when you're doing something you're forced to do, you're going to make little mistakes. You're going to be the first ones on the chopping block. You're going to be the one that people are going to point the finger at. It's all, or you get fired or you quit, basically. So dealing with that is going through a process where you can focus on who you are and really enjoy it and have fun. Because we got to have fun. We got to have fun.
It's funny that you say that. I always think of those people in school who were always getting in trouble, or not. It seemed like they weren't paying attention, or they didn't seem very smart, and then they go on to do these great, amazing things. They start these companies or they invent this idea. And as you were talking just now, that sounded to me like maybe they did have career ADD, that if they weren't fully engaged in what they were doing and felt immersed and loved it, they couldn't hold their attention. Is that what that feels like? Would that be a sign that somebody might have career ADD as well?
Well, I'll give an example. Steve Jobs, who we're all very sad about, but I think he's a legend in his time, and it's going to more and more information will come out on Steve Jobs, and I believe he had career. He maybe didn't talk about it, but he has all the characteristics. When he was in school, he had a teacher who actually paid him cash to finish an assignment, which parents may go, oh my gosh, that's not the way to motivate a child, right? You shouldn't be giving them cash, right? But it worked for him because it made him believe that what he was doing, who he was important. I mean, he could have been thrown out of school. He didn't like school. He also was a college dropout, either a high school or a college dropout. And I hate to, I'm an advocate for college, mind you, but he ended up taking classes that he wanted to take, ones that he loved taking. He knew already, he designed his life around his ADD characteristics. Does that make sense? I mean, so it's important, I think, to design a life around who you are, around what supports you best. And that's what I do when I work with people who have this issue, is that when we're talking about what kind of future they want, the first thing I tell them to do is do the working conditions. What do you want? What do you need to support you in the kind of conditions that you're working in? What is it that you need? And define that for yourself, down to the last detail. Those are things that are really important. They may not be as important or necessary for people who don't have this, but for people that do, it's very, very important.
It's funny that you say that. What do you say to the person that's almost frightened, that is convinced that I don't know that I'm ever going to find anything I love? I've been trying for a really long time now, and everything you're saying today makes sense to me, Shell, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to figure this out. How do you coach them through that?
Well, we do it one step at a time. That's the only way to do it. The only way to get through fear is to like take it in small bits. And if you try and do everything at once and say, oh, I've got to figure it all out before I do anything, you're never going to do anything, and that's career paralysis, basically. So yeah, we do one thing first, get some insight. Do the next thing, get some insights. And it starts to paint a picture after a while, and it becomes easier and easier and easier to start looking at what the possibilities are. And possibilities will come up. They will naturally come up, and they're actually already there. And for people who are paralyzed, they probably are paralyzed because they have a lot of yes buts, or I should do this, or I shouldn't do that, or they have somebody's voice in their head telling them they can't do it, or why, if I do it, I'll fail, that kind of thing. So all those issues come up, and they do come up in this process. And sometimes people need to have like counseling, mental health counseling, to go along with the career counseling to make sure that they can talk about all that personal stuff as it comes up. But yeah, I mean, I see that happening all the time, and that's really why people come to a career counselor. They want to get out of that paralysis. They want to move on.
That's fantastic. Folks, we have been talking with Mendelson. She's one of our Careerism approved experts who specializes in career ABD and career paralysis, which we really appreciate her taking the time to share on that subject today. And she's been tying that back in with our theme for today's show, which is the 3 things that college students should be doing before they graduate but aren't doing. And just to recap what those 3 things were: having a career goal first and really focusing on that career goal while they're in school, not just going through the motions. Number 2, really taking financial ownership of that college degree, making sure every class they take, everything that they spend money on is really working towards that career goal so it's not wasted. And number 3, networking, learning how to do informational interviews the right way, learning how to be inquisitive, be curious, and get that information that they need. And really, I think that you did a great job today, Shell, of proving to people what you said in the beginning, which is please get some help. You aren't expected to know how to do this. You don't have to go it alone. There are resources, whether it's at your school or you have a mentor, or candidly, why not invest the money in working with a professional so they can help you? If you could do this by yourself and with, online tools, you would have by now, as you pointed out. So I think that was just a really great and lovely reminder. And so I can't believe it. We're going to wrap it up for the day. Shell, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for the audience before we close up the show?
I'm just really excited to be here and to be able to share this information. I haven't even begun to touch the surface. So it was just fun to be able to share it with a group of people who are targeted, who really are looking for this. And I just, want to emphasize that it's never too late to design the career for you, design the thing that you're going to be doing, or a path to what you're going to be doing, and that it doesn't have to, there is no be-all, end-all, that you're going to have changes along the way in your life. When you have your roadmap, you can make changes to it, tweak it along the way. You don't have to be married to any one thing, and you shouldn't be, because life changes. And you'll change as you grow. The older you get, obviously, the more experiences you're going to have and the more interest you'll have. You'll have kids that might interest you. You'll get married. Maybe, something your spouse is doing will capture your imagination. All kinds of things can come up. So always be open, but have a goal of some kind to begin with.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Shell. I hope you come back and come to speak with us more about career ABD and career paralysis, because those are very interesting topics. Will you come back again?
Absolutely. And please check out my website if you want to do the mini counseling session. I'm very happy to schedule that with you. I love meeting people and getting to know you all. So come visit me.
Absolutely. And we're going to pop Passion to Career back up there again for all of you. So you can go up there. You can sign up for her free information on 6-minute goal setting, as well as check out that mini session with Shell. And I have to say, Shell, just talking to you today, I think if I was a student, I would want to work with you, because you make me feel better. You do. You make me feel like this can be done. And I know there's a lot of people out there right now that have a pretty high level of anxiety, especially if they've got career ABD, as you described today. So it is really reassuring to hear that, and I really appreciate you being on today.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
All right.
JT. I
Well,
appreciate you.
another episode of Careerism TV is wrapping up for today, folks. Thank you so much for stopping by. As always, you can watch this show on demand, as well as over 100 plus hours of career tutorials available to you over at CareerABD.com. Just grab a freemium account, and you'll be able to watch this again. And please, please go over to PassionToCareer.com and check out Shell's work because it's top notch. So thank you, everyone. And Shell, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.